Now, if your DJ sets are feeling a little bit similar to everyone else, then this video will help. I'm going to show you 5 creative DJ techniques that you can use to make your DJ sets sound more unique, more personal, and more interesting. And the most important thing to understand is this: these techniques are not tied to any specific genre. Whether you play house, hip hop, drum and bass, open format, or anything else, you can apply all of these ideas to your own style of music. My name is Blakey, I'm a DMC champion, and I've helped thousands of DJs level up with my online courses. So let's get into it. Okay, for the first technique, I'm going to show you how to build tension using looping. Now here on the DDJ Flex 4, I've got 2 house tracks loaded into the decks, and I'm going to set a loop on a piece of vocal on the track on the left deck, and then I'm going to adjust the length of that loop to make it shorter and shorter whilst applying some effects and some filter, and this is going to create a huge build up before the track on the right deck drops. This is how you can actually use your own skill and creativity to create build-ups and tension. So very quickly, let me show you how you can set a simple loop on your track on the DDJ Flex 4. Now this button right here says 4-beat loop, and this will work in either Recordbox or Serato. So if I play this track and then press this button, what that's done is it's set an automatic 4-beat loop that will be perfectly in time and will continue forever. So setting a loop on the DDJ Flex 4 is super simple. You just press that button there and it will set a 4-beat loop. You can then press the button again and it will turn that loop off. So now let me show you the part of this house track on the left deck that I'm going to set a loop on. Now it's actually in the breakdown section, and I've set a hot cue right here, right at the beginning of that breakdown. So let's take a listen. So this is the breakdown section where there's no drums, there's no bass, and it's kind of like the break in the track. So I'm going to press the 4-beat loop button in a moment. So that's the section that I'm going to loop, but I actually want to halve that loop once so that it starts with a 2-beat loop. And all I need to do that is use this left arrow here. So that will halve the length of the loop. You can halve it again. So by pressing that left arrow, that halves the loop live, and it will always keep it perfectly in time. So all I need to do to set this 2-beat loop is trigger the 4-beat loop and then press the left arrow once. Let's do that again. So in a moment, I'm going to press the 4-beat loop button and then press the left arrow, and that will set a 4-beat loop and then immediately halve it to 2 beats. Here we go. So there we go. So there's my 2-beat loop. Now that there is the loop that I'm going to be using for this technique, and I'm going to use the left arrow to build the tension by halving the loop bit by bit and then applying some low pass filter and some reverb, and this will create a huge build up before the track on the right deck drops. So let me show you what that sounds like without playing the track on the right deck just yet. Bit of reverb here, and then let's halve it. Let's halve it again. And then when you bring the fader down, because we've got a little bit of reverb applied, that will leave a nice tail at the end of that loop. So now let's take a listen to this full looping transition. So what we've done there is we've used looping to create a build-up, which then creates anticipation and tension before the drop. And this style of transition works great with other genres as well. Tech house, drum and bass, UK garage. No matter what style of music you play, you can take this technique and apply it to your own sets. Now, if you'd like help finding better music to practice these transitions with, I've built a completely free mini course showing you exactly where pro DJs find their music and how they build out their libraries. The link is in the description if you want to check that out. Okay, next up, we're going to be talking about the genre switch up. And the genre switch up is the perfect way of transitioning from one genre to a completely new one, but doing it as seamlessly and creatively as possible. Now, for this transition, we're going to actually start with a hip hop track. We're going to be playing Jay-Z and Kanye, Paris. So we're going to start the mix with this track, and we're going to mix into a track by Skrillex called Inhale, Exhale, which is a dubstep track. Now, these two tracks are completely different, but when this is done right, this can make a dance floor go crazy. Now, for this transition, we're actually going to be using a little bit of Serato stems. Now, if you're not aware, stems inside DJ software is a fairly new invention. It came out maybe 3 or 4 years ago, but it allows you to turn any song in your library into the a cappella version or the instrumental version. And for a transition like this one, that is invaluable. Now, importantly, you can actually trigger all of these stems controls here directly from any DJ controller that you have plugged in to Serato. And to do that, let's go to the Serato settings, and then under DJ preferences, you've got this option here, replace primary hardware pad mode with stems. Now, on the DDJ Flex 4, you only have the option of using sampler. So make sure this box is ticked, and then let's come out of the settings. Now here on the DDJ Flex 4, if we change both decks to the sampler pad mode, we can now use these pads to change the stems inside Serato. And that is by far the best way of using stems inside the Serato software. Now, I'm actually going to begin this transition by playing the Jay-Z track without the vocals, and I'm going to start the Skrillex track with only the vocals. So the transition starts with this incredibly recognizable part of the Jay-Z and Kanye track. Everybody knows this track. This track will work in any club in front of any crowd. But what we're going to do is when the vocals come in a moment, we're going to switch out the beat. So at this point, we're going to switch out the beat for the Skrillex dubstep track, and we're going to switch Paris over to the vocals only. So now we'll have the vocals of Paris over the dubstep track, and this is called a genre switch up. Now, the genres that you choose to switch between, that actually doesn't matter. That's totally up to you, and that is where your own creativity and originality comes into it. Even if you don't play hip hop or you don't play dubstep, it's the principle that matters. You can take this skill and simply transfer the music to music that you love, and music that you want to be associated with as a DJ. So now let's take a listen to the transition.
So I ball so hard, motherfuckers wanna find me. First niggas gotta find me. What's 50 grand to a motherfucker like me? Can you please remind me? Ball so hard, this shit crazy. Y'all don't know that don't shit fade. And as we go, 0 for 82 when I look at you like this shit crazy. Ball so hard, this shit weird. We ain't even supposed to be here. Ball so hard since we here. It's only right that we be fair. Psycho, I'm liable to go Michael. Take your pick, Jackson, Tyson, Jordan, Game 6.
Now, the great thing about a genre switch up like this one is we've taken this Jay-Z track, but we've kept the two most recognizable parts of this song. The instrumental that we began the transition with, and we've kept the sing-along rap in, but we've simply introduced a dubstep track underneath. So people in the crowd still get to enjoy everything that's great about this Jay-Z track, but we've switched the genre and now we can start taking our set in a different direction. It's transitions like this one that allow you to inject your own personality into your sets. Now, if you use the DDJ Flex 4 like I am here, and you'd like some completely free lessons to help you get started, there is a link in the description where you can grab those. So next up, we're going to look at live remixing using the hot cues. This is also known as finger drumming, which is where you trigger brand new drum beats live using the hot cues, but we're actually going to be using a vocal snippet instead for this transition. This is a transition where you can really show off your skills, but you can make it as simple or as complex as you like. Now, the track I've got loaded into the left deck is a UK garage track, and right before the drop, there's an a cappella piece of vocal that says that's a cold rhythm, drop that. Take a listen.
That's a cold rhythm, drop that.
And I'm going to use that piece of vocal to chop up different parts of it live, creating a remix. So the first thing to do is go back and we need to set our hot cues. Now I've already set them right here, but I'm going to delete them and reset them to show you how to do that. So to delete hot cues, hold down Shift. And now you can see all of those hot cues have now gone. Now I'm going to zoom in slightly on the waveform in Serato by pressing the plus icon on my keyboard. And now I would like to set 4 hot cues. Now the first one, I'd like to set it on the word that's. So it's right here. So just get the playhead position to exactly where you'd like to set the hot cue, and then just press an empty hot cue. So that one's done. Now the second hot cue, I want to set it on the word cold, which is right here. So again, get the playhead position where you want it, and then trigger that hot cue. Now I'd like to set the third hot cue on the word drop. And then the fourth hot cue on the word that. So those are the hot cues that I'm going to use for this transition. Now the next thing I want to do is I want to set a 2-beat loop on the vocal phrase on the left deck. So all we need to do is press play, and I'm going to press 2 beats. So that right there is a 2-beat loop, and we can actually save this loop that we've just created inside Serato to the track. And to do that, we just need to click that icon right there, and you can actually double click this and call it whatever you like. So now for the transition, I'm going to begin by playing the track on the left deck. And then when it goes into that loop that we just set, I'm going to start mixing in the track on the right deck from 32 beats before the drop. And then when the track on the right deck drops, that's when I'm going to start triggering the different hot cues that I've set. So let's take a listen.
Yeah, run round here. Sewage and scum round here. Babylon, I get bun round here. Yeah, you know about enough round here. Yeah, run round here. Sewage and scum round here. Babylon, I get bun round here. That's a cold rhythm, drop that 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 cold rhythm, drop that. That's a cold rhythm, cold rhythm. That's a cold rhythm, drop that. That's a cold rhythm, cold rhythm, drop that, cold rhythm. That's a cold rhythm, cold rhythm. That's a cold rhythm, drop that. Cold rhythm, cold rhythm. That's a cold rhythm, drop that. One for me.
Now, if you're enjoying this type of creative DJing, I actually teach this stuff in a lot more depth inside my DJ courses. I've created courses covering everything from creative mixing, scratching, hip-hop DJing, and open format skills. And I even have a full course dedicated to the DDJ Flex 4. If you want to see everything that's available, just click the first link in the description and you can explore all of my DJ courses there. Okay, next up, let's talk about wide BPM transitions. And this is where you transition between 2 tracks that have completely different BPMs. So on the left deck, I've got a house track loaded in. So this is 135 BPM. And we are going to transition from that house track into a drum and bass track. And of course, the drum and bass track is way faster. So transitioning between 2 tracks like this is possible, but it's something that actually requires preparation. Attempting to pull off a transition like this one live with 2 random tracks is most often not going to sound great. But I'm going to show you right now exactly how you can prepare a transition like this. If you're an open format DJ, this is invaluable because it allows you to go from the house tempo all the way up to drum and bass and completely transform the energy on the dance floor. Now, the first thing we need to do for a wide BPM transition is we need to change what's called the tempo range in the DJ software. So right now, you can see in Serato, the tempo range is set to +& -8. Now what that means is if I move the tempo slider to the fastest setting, we're only at 145 BPM. Now, that's not enough. We need to be able to move the tempo slider all the way up to drum and bass tempo. And we can do this by changing the tempo range. Now here on the DDJ Flex 4, you can hold down the shift button and then press the beat sync button, which will change the tempo range. So now we're on plus and minus 16, and now we're on plus and minus 50. For a wide BPM transition, plus and minus 50 is going to give us more than enough room. So now, if I move the tempo slider, you can see it now goes all the way up to 202, which is far too fast. We only need to go up to about 173-ish. Now, a wide BPM transition also requires your tracks to be synced. Now, because we're going to be starting this transition with the house track, we actually need to sync the drum and bass track to the house track. So we need to press sync on the drum and bass track. So let's press beat sync here. And now the drum and bass track is playing at house tempo. Now you may have noticed that the BPMs in Serato are not the same number, but that's okay. This track is 135 and this track is synced, but it's running at 67.5. That's fine because 67.5 is exactly half of 135. So these two tracks will still be playing at the same tempo. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to start the transition by playing the house track. And then this track is going to go into the breakdown in a moment. And once it's in the breakdown, I'm going to start mixing the drum and bass track in. Here's the breakdown. And at that point, I'm going to start mixing in the drum and bass track. But crucially, I'm going to gradually increase the tempo by moving the tempo slider. It's important to do this gradually, so we can hear it getting faster now. Keep moving it. And at that point, that will be the end of the transition, and that is when I will take out the house track and the drum and bass track will drop. The most important thing here is to move that tempo slider gradually, especially in the first half of the transition. In that first half, you really want to move that tempo slider as gradually as possible. And what this will do is it will introduce the idea to the crowd that the tempo is increasing so that they can get used to it and understand what's happening. If you move that tempo slider too fast, this might confuse the dance floor. But once the first half of that BPM transition has happened, that's when you can start to ramp it up a little bit more, which will actually increase the anticipation for the drum and bass track to drop. So let's take a listen. And finally, I'm going to show you how you can add some simple scratching to your DJ sets to add some creativity and some musicality. Now on the left deck, I've got the a cappella for Music Sounds Better With You by Stardust. And this is such a recognizable vocal. Everyone knows that vocal, so it's the perfect vocal to scratch in over another house track. And trust me, you don't need to be a DMC champion, and in fact you don't even really need to know many scratch techniques at all, because for this we're only going to be using the baby scratch, which is the most simple scratch technique that you could possibly learn. It simply involves moving the jog wheel back and forth in time with the track on the other deck. We're not even going to be using the crossfader, and the baby scratch sounds like this. This is going to add texture to your mix, and it will allow you to show off some skills without getting too technical, because trust me, anybody can perform a baby scratch. It just requires a little bit of practice to get used to the rhythm so that your baby scratches sound clean and in time. So the first thing to practice is to just play a track on the other deck and then take a piece of the vocal. I'm going to take this bit here, and I just want you to practice moving the jog wheel backwards and forwards perfectly in time with the track on the other deck. And when you feel comfortable with that, you can speed it up. It's important to keep your hand nice and relaxed when you're moving that jog wheel backwards and forwards, because this is going to help you keep the flow and keep the rhythm nice and tight. If this hand is too tense, it actually becomes harder to keep those scratches nice and smooth and keep them flowing. When you perform a baby scratch perfectly in time, it sounds good. So if scratching is something that you don't have any experience in, that's fine. You can just use the baby scratch technique like I'm showing you here. You can also change up the rhythm whilst you're actually performing the baby scratch. So you could perform some slower baby scratches and then follow that up with some quicker ones like this. If you don't have any experience with scratching, keeping it as simple as possible is the way to go. The key is to just make sure that the scratches you do perform are clean, tight, and consistent. It's very easy to overdo scratching when you're playing in a club, so my advice is to keep it simple. Developing your own sound as a DJ takes time, but if you take the time to learn all 5 of these techniques I've shown you in this video, these will help you gradually start to shape your sound. Experiment with these techniques and adapt them to your own taste in music, and start focusing on building a sound that feels authentic to you. Now, if creative DJing is your thing and you want to check out some more tutorials from me, I've got a playlist right here that is full of videos that are going to help you level up fast. My name is Blakey, thanks for watching, and hopefully I'll see you on the next one.